Oh, there's a kid learning how to segue. Isn't that cute? That's hilarious. Hey, you're here with Ben, and today we're in Sevilla, the capital of Andalusia in southern Spain. Ready to do a whirlwind tour of this awesome city before moving on to the real adventure. You see, we're actually here for a whole week, working every single day on a brand new, probably our biggest project yet, a multi-day feature on hiking a Camino. So please do like and subscribe if you're interested in that. But now, back to the day. We're gonna try and cram in as much Andalusian culture as we can, and it's gonna be a little bit tough. Time constraints, right? So how are we gonna do it? The first stop is gonna be the Sevilla Cathedral, and across from that, the Royal Alcázar Palace. From there, the Metropol Parasol. Seeing all that and grabbing bites to eat along the way and stopping at cafes should, I think, take all day. And then tonight, back in San Lorenzo for dinner, we'll be going out to a flamenco show. But instead of going to one of the more touristy trap places, I found a local peña where they keep the culture and history alive. We're gonna go drink with some locals and see some authentic music, and I am incredibly stoked. So let's go. We need to hit the ground running and get to some of the more touristy sites before the lines get out of control. Because even on February 22nd, so not exactly peak season here, you can face some steep competition, which honestly took me completely by surprise. So thinking on the fly, I dove into the line out in front of the cathedral, and then while waiting, I sneakily made a reservation for the palace set only a few hours in the future. That way, by the time I finish seeing the cathedral and had a churro, it'll be time to tour the palace. With some proper thinking ahead, this could have been completely avoided and a whole lot smoother. But oh well, not that you'll have to worry about any of that though, since now you know. Enough about lines. Let's talk about this cathedral. That's what we're here for. It was built on top of the destroyed Sevilla Mosque, as Christianity had now supplanted Islam in the region. Legend has it that the original architects were instructed to make a building so large, so magnificent, that the people would think they were crazy. To this end, they did succeed in their mission, supplanting the Hagia Sophia by creating the new, largest cathedral in the world, a title it still holds to this day. Comprising of 80 chapels, incredible Gothic styling, and a lofty nave, this is a very impressive structure. Not only are the building's bones impressive though, but it actually houses some historically significant human bones too, with many monarchs buried within, such as Ferdinand III. They even have the tomb of Christopher Columbus. So let's take just a bit more of a look before moving on. Alright guys, so we just got done at the cathedral, and it was a European big city cathedral. It was it was. I think it was okay, but we'll talk more about that in the conclusion. What I'm pretty excited for, and I hope it holds up, is the palace. So let's go over there now. Finally in the palace, my initial impression really is a spot of awe. Usually I'm really not all that impressed with these sort of touristy sites, but I sure am glad I made an online reservation for this one because I would hate to have missed it. Built by the region's Moorish rulers in the 8th century and later edited and added to by the Christian monarch, this site features a fascinating mix of traditional Mudéjar architecture, but also with splashes and flares of Gothic, Renaissance and Romanesque design elements. Try saying that 10 times fast. Of all that, the most preeminent and captivating aspect has got to be the intense tile work laden in every nook and cranny possible. You could spend all day just staring up at the ceiling, let alone the rest of it. Now, as much as I would love to do that, don't spend too much time inside because you've also got the gardens to explore. Overflowing with fruit trees, water features, manicured hedges, and lush grass with a wide variety of fragrant flowers, the gardens are a treat to all senses. This is of course entirely on purpose, since the garden orchards were not only designed to supply food, but had the aesthetic goal of bringing pleasure and tranquility. As I walked around, I saw many people away from the crowds, just reading their books or resting their eyes. So I suppose that's going to be mission accomplished. I really can't overstate how much I enjoyed my time at the palace. I'm sad to say goodbye as I move on to the rest of Sevilla. But before we do, let's have one more good look around this place before moving on. Alright, we just finished with the palace, and if I seemed a little bit unimpressed with the cathedral, paint me the opposite for the palace. I really loved it. If I had to pick only one or the other, because they cost the same, which is shocking, I would pick the palace every time. In fact, I saw quite a few people just bringing along a book and hanging out in the gardens. They were that pretty. So now we're gonna walk about 20 minutes north towards the Parasol to get some food, and we'll figure out what happens after that. Come on, let's go. Next, we're leaving the old world behind and heading north, walking and eating our way through the Casco Antiguo neighborhood to the aesthetic La Encarnacion Square. I'm sure I didn't butcher that too much, did I? There, we're gonna find the Metropol Parasol, or the giant mushroom. Ever skeptical of these large tourist destinations, fearing simply that they might be traps, I found myself pleasantly surprised with the authenticity of this plaza. It really seems like a hotbed of activity for locals and tourists alike, with local teens hanging out, kids playing football, and adults meeting up for dinner. In fact, we liked it so much that we stuck around a little longer than anticipated, simply enjoying the local Sevilla vibes and feeling grateful for this 2011 EU-funded structure. Originally planning on going to the top, we instead skipped the view and its line, having found something arguably much cooler along the way. I cannot tell you how stoked I am today. It's just been up and up ever since waking, and that's just perfect, isn't it? It's all you can hope for. Now, as you can see behind me, we're at the Parasol. The food itself has been good. I'm glad we took that 22-minute walk north. Needless to say, we just got finished up at the Parasol, and I thought I'd tell you about a pretty funny anecdote. I've been trying to be a bit more spontaneous, right? So I was just looking at what I saw on guidebooks, but never reading too deep into it. And I saw that underneath the Parasol, not only can you go up it to get a view of the city, but you can go below it to an aquarium. So I was super excited to go see a bunch of fish and all that, you know? Turns out I just can't read, because it's not an aquarium, it's an antiquarium, which honestly is just even better for me. You see, when they were actually building this place, they found a ton of Roman ruins and mosaics all littered around, and so they preserved them in the basement of the building. It's fantastic, and you totally have to go. So many people were waiting in line to go up, not a single person to go in the museum. So you get to just walk around, it's very modern, and you're all by yourself. So I'm gonna go and take a quick sleep before I end up going back out tonight to see some flamenco. I'll take you along for that as well. Now to bed. So, it's around 7 at night, and we're hanging out and snacking in the San Lorenzo neighborhood. It seems we've lucked out yet again in finding a locals area, as I've heard only Spanish and seen very few touristy establishments. Similar to the mushroom, there are tons of locals meeting and hanging out. I could definitely see myself staying in Sevilla for a little while just for this alone. It's been fantastic, and it'll be sad to leave. For restaurant recommendations, well, we went to Dua Tapas and Casa Paco. Both I would heartedly recommend, but I highly doubt you're going to go wrong in this neighborhood. And no matter which one you choose, you're going to be only 15 minutes from our next stop, Flamenco. We're going to walk north from here to a local Peña Flamenca. Imagine it as an enthusiast-ran cultural center. Sevilla has many of these, but the one I've chosen is Torres Macarena. Now, you're going to want to listen up, because this is the opposite of tourist-geared flamenco. They're not here trying to make any money, just keep the culture alive. So the rules are not obvious to the uninitiated. Lucky for you, I went and sussed it all out earlier, which was not easy. So take some notes and brush up on your Spanish. Costing only €8, this Peña offers professional shows every Saturday night, starting at some point between 9 and 10 p.m. We're going to be running on Southern Europe time, after all. Guests, meaning you, will need to arrive sometime around 8:40 to buy tickets, throw a reservation slip on their seat, and grab a drink in the courtyard. Try not to be too late though, as this venue does fill up. And worst case scenario, have a second drink in the courtyard. For those stressed by the crowd, the Peña offers amateur or up-and-coming upcoming shows on Wednesday and Friday nights with, as I found, a small, local, but also very friendly crowd. I think that's going to be about it for me though. The show was amazing. I couldn't recommend it more, but I think I'm going to have to let the footage speak for itself, and I'll see you in the conclusion. Hey everybody, so we're back in Munich, like always, ready to reflect on our trip together. This one, of course, I had single day in Sevilla before we moved on for our Caminos. And honestly, it was really surprising. We both really loved it. So much so, we have a surprise for you today. Positivity from Camille. So why don't you just go ahead and tell us all about it?
Yeah, I had a fantastic time. Kind of can't stop talking about it, recommending it to people. And I was honestly really shocked that I felt that way, because if you know anything about me and the way I like to plan my traveling is I devote very little time to actually being in the cities, and a lot of the time is spent outside the cities doing day trips and going around the rural countryside and really trying to get a feel for how the people outside and in the region actually live, as you can probably glean from the concept of our YouTube channel.
Right, I mean, you'll notice that in every conclusion I welcome you back to Munich and I have no content on what you should do when you get here. Plenty of content for you getting on the train and leaving though, and I think that's really indicative of how we feel about cities and how we feel about travel in general, and like you said, why we made this channel in the first place.
Yeah, honestly, I have a lot of difficulty finding things as a tourist that I can really enjoy, but as somebody who lives in a city right now, I find lots of things that I can enjoy. So it's really difficult for me to recommend things in the city to people who are visiting. But this was not the case with Sevilla, and I think that has to do with a lot with the fact that the size of Sevilla. Mm-hmm. It's a small city, but it's not so small that you feel claustrophobic and penned in by the tourism industry, as you can feel in a lot of European cities, especially the smaller ones. Mm-hmm. So the Cathedral Palace area was obviously quite touristy, although we did hear a lot of Spanish, which was very surprising to me. It was quite touristy, but then once you start walking maybe even 5 minutes outside of that area, it got very, for lack of a better term, authentic feeling. It felt like a lot of, we keep saying locals were there. There were a lot of restaurants and bars that seemed very high quality. They weren't trying to, rip off tourists and go in that direction. So I really had a nice time and can't recommend it enough. But you had some sort of behind the scenes information that wasn't featured in the video. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, so I don't know if you've watched our Lisbon video, and I kind of hope you do, but during that conclusion, I complain about other people not being very good at coming up with itineraries, and I was feeling pretty frustrated. So this video being shot the next day, I mean, not only a few hours later, when we woke up, I was starting to feel a little frustrated with what I'd read about Sevilla as well. Obviously, the main touristy bit with the palace and whatnot, they'd done that perfectly fine. But then a lot of the recommendations were to go over to Triada, because that's where it was supposed to be very authentic and very beautiful. I mean, the whole place was quite beautiful, but this is where you could go for authenticity. And they actually told us to kind of stay away from the Metropol Parasol, that big mushroom that we went to, saying that that was too touristy. And I don't know what they were doing, because I think they got it completely backwards. When we went over to Triada, there were tons of tourists, and all of them seemed confused on why they were there, because it wasn't really making itself apparent how they should engage with that space. I mean, maybe for locals it's really good, maybe for the right kind of tourist, but for the vast majority, they were confused. And when we went over to the Metropol Parasol, it was wonderful. There were so many people just hanging out, kids playing football. It was awesome. It had really fantastic vibes, and it was just only a block or two away from San Lorenzo, where all that good food was. So that place really kind of blew me away. So kind of an executive decision on the fly, we cut and swapped what we were going to do so that we could make this video significantly clearer about what I would do given one day. I would repeat this again, no problems and no reservations. Whereas some of the stuff I read online, no, I don't think they were leading you down the best roads. I don't think so.
Yeah. So with that being said, please like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, because our next video I'm really excited for. We're doing our 5-day Camino hike in rural Andalusia.
And Extremadura.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we went through a lot of places, and we're super excited for this. Though, Originally, you were the most excited, and I almost feel like the energies are swapping a little bit because I really didn't believe in this trip. I thought doing 5 days, waking up, hiking all day, sleeping, waking up, hiking all day, how terrible and boring. I'm actually going to make a whole video on that part of the experience. But the logistic one will be coming up first. We'll be explaining to you how you should be doing these kind of multi-day walking holidays, because I think it's something that is thoroughly overlooked, and you've converted me completely. I think is wonderful. We're already planning another one. So do like and subscribe, watch those videos, and see if maybe you learn a new way to travel.
Bye.
Bye.